Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Well, AVEA is the National Representative Association for the Visitor Experience and Attractions Industry in Ireland. I'm now joined by the organisation's CEO, Flanagan. Catherine, how has the industry been performing in 2023?
Well, it's fair to say, Karl, that it's been a mixed bag. There's no doubt that some markets have recovered very strongly and have been very good to us this year. The American market certainly exceeded expectations, but sometimes we find that the US market tends to stick to the more traditional itineraries, which means that the very well-known sites do very well, and those that are perhaps off the beaten track or maybe that are accessible by a rental car just haven't experienced that lift again this year. We're still in that post-COVID environment where there's a lot of uncertainty in the air, but certainly, as I say, it's a mixed bag. Some are doing very well and some would be down about 30%.
And Catherine, what do you think needs to be done to encourage the US tourists to visit a wider range of tourist attractions?
Well, a lot of what Fáilte Ireland is centred around their strategy of supporting, regional tourism and seasonal tourism. So it's not all about focusing, a large amount of people into a small amount of businesses and spreading awareness and knowledge of different attractions that are located all over Ireland. I mean, obviously people would come to Ireland and they really want to see the key spots like the Kylemore Abbeys or Book of Kells or Guinness Storehouse. But then we're really hoping that they would take the detours to see places like Burr Castle or Dunbrody Salmon Ship or Wells House, which may not be on traditional itineraries, but which are really worth a look. And they see a totally different side to Ireland when they visit off track.
Could Budget 2024 have done more to support visitor attractions in terms of building their own capacity?
Yes, well, I suppose we were certainly hoping for a little bit more clarity in Budget 2024, and there has been some expression of disappointment in tourism circles. Having said that, Minister Martin did reference in her post-budget speech that there was talk of support for some downstream businesses. Now, downstream businesses that were referenced were specifically visitor attractions and activity providers, because as you know, the provision of accommodation for humanitarian need took many hotel and B&B bedrooms out of the tourism stock. So that had a knock-on impact on, holiday homes and where people might stay, and therefore the number of visitors within a particular region who might have been taking a day trip to a visitor attraction. So we're awaiting details on that. So I'm demurring on that one until we have further clarity.
And what are the main challenges that your members are telling you that they have at this current time?
The big challenge really that's facing everybody, and it's not unique to tourism, it's right across all sectors and indeed in our homes as well, is costs, operating costs. And that includes your energy, your insurance, just the general cost of doing business, the cost of credit. Next year we will have an increase in the national minimum wage, and we'd have lots of businesses that have nobody on the minimum wage. But if you are applying a 12% pay increase to one pay scale, it's inevitable that others at a different level in the organisation may also be seeking a big pay increase. So that is going to be quite a challenge when we're already operating off very, very narrow margins. The average ticket yield in our visitor attractions would be less than a tenner a head. So we really need to have a lot of people coming through the door before we start making money.
And is there an opportunity to increase those ticket prices?
We've looked at things internationally. We benchmark very well and very competitively. And I mean, there has been some criticism in tourism circles regarding, pricing and around competitiveness of pricing. And I suppose that reaches a lot of, that has garnered a lot of media attention and not all of it wanted. So as visitor attractions, we'd be very keen to not push prices up beyond people's reach, because not only are we looking at international markets, but our domestic markets have been very good to us, and it's very important that we retain that value for money proposition. So, I would say we're certainly competitive and attractively priced at the moment.
And you referenced earlier about the number of hotel rooms that have been taken out of the market. What impact has that had on your members overall?
To be honest, we don't have full sight on that. We did some interim reporting at the end of August just to assess the impact. Fáilte Ireland were very responsive. They did some advertising around, day trips and daycations and things to do on your days out. So I think we really won't have full clarity on the impact until the end of the year. I think we're still at that stage of uncertainty. And as winter comes in, there may be further knock-on impacts as refugees who are being accommodated in temporary accommodation really, really need to be in secure, warm, a proper provision of accommodation for the winter months, and that may be tourism accommodation, I don't know. It is up to the Department of Children and Youth Affairs to manage that problem, but obviously it does impact on other departments, and there is a ripple effect throughout the economy generally. Having said that, tourism will certainly play its part in providing accommodation, but it can't be the only solution, I suppose.
And in terms of international emerging trends, what are they currently in the visitor experience and attraction space that your members need to be cognizant of?
Well, I suppose from the customer point of view, like what visitors are expecting now is, they're certainly looking for very memorable experiences. Like all the trends post-COVID are that people are seeking to reconnect with family and friends and spend really quality time with their family and friends, creating memories and revisiting places they were in the past, gathering together the important people in their lives. So I think that there is kind of a craving for sort of a more deep engagement with the holiday experience than before. And of course, we also have to be alert to like social media trends and how immersive experiences are, how Instagrammable they are, and how people are going to carry their memories away with them. So I suppose what visitor attractions are trying to do is build that memory a little bit before you arrive, deliver a really excellent experience, and then have this legacy effect after you've left.
In your opinion, Catherine, what impact could artificial intelligence have on the attractions industry going forward?
This is an area of real interest to us, as it is to many businesses. At our recent conference in Ennistimon in County Clare, we had a gentleman speaking who's the country manager of Google Ireland, and he spoke about how Google is now an AI-first company. And what that means is that the way we search currently using our Google search bar is going to transform beyond recognition over the next couple of years with this sort of heightened skill in terms of searching. So the use of AI isn't just around, I suppose we tend to think of it as generating copy, like, writing copy for a website or writing an essay for college. But in actual fact, it's more about anticipating what people are going to want and using that intelligence to build a better and more personalised experience for people.
Did the head of Google in Ireland provide any advice to your members in that respect in terms of what they need to do to adapt their business accordingly online?
Google are currently piloting some of this new sort of super search technology in overseas markets. So we're not seeing that yet. And I suppose it was interesting for our audience to look at it from 2 points of view, because first of all, you look at it from the perspective of, well, I'm a holiday maker, I'm a tourist, I go on holidays myself. And the research that showed us how long people spend thinking about their holiday, deciding where they're going to go, planning their flights, planning their accommodation, deciding what they're going to see and do when they're there. And that is quite a long process. Like that's sort of a 3 to 5 week process before people actually make a decision on their holiday. And then, of course, looking at from the other point of view, as a business, well, how are businesses going to respond to that? So Google is putting so much of their investment into AI. So I suppose they will be directing visitors in particular ways. And our businesses will then need to learn to optimize how they're viewed online and how searchable they are so that people can find them and book them.
And what supports are in place to support your members in relation to assisting them to embrace AI?
Well, I suppose before we get to AI, there's just general capability around digital that needed to be improved across our sector. I suppose we would have a very mixed membership. Some of our members would be very advanced in terms of the technology and the digital marketing that they would employ, whereas others may not have the budgets or the skills to do so. But Fáilte Ireland developed a really fantastic plan over the last couple of years to level the playing field, and it's called a Digital That Delivers programme. And so far, out of the 120 or so members that my association has, about 75 businesses have gone through or are going through that skilling programme. So there was an investment both in terms of money and in terms of people's skills.
And of course, another topic that's high on the agenda for all businesses is climate change and sustainability. How relevant is this to your own members, and what are they doing in that respect?
Well, sustainability is something that we're all going to have to take very seriously. As part of our contribution towards sustainability for our conference, we provided coach transfers so that we were taking the number of cars off the road in County Clare. And our conference took place very close to the Cliffs of Moher. And the Cliffs of Moher would be a real best in class in terms of its green credentials. You know, huge amount of the stock that they have at their shop is sourced from local suppliers. Same with their food provision, no single-use plastic at the Cliffs, and a real conscious effort to manage the individual cars that are coming in. Other members that we'd have, for example, Airfield Estate is a registered B Corp business, And Dublinia is another business that went through a complete green programme over the last couple of years, reducing its carbon footprint by tackling specifically waste, energy and water usage. So we have some best in class, and we really need to make sure that everybody is keeping up and hitting those targets by the time 2030 comes.
And from a broader perspective, what new government grants and supports would you like to see introduced to support your members?
I guess we would like to see the continued investment in the digital capabilities. We'd like to see the ongoing supports that are there for sustainable achievements. And a particular area of interest that we're looking at, and which was discussed at length at our conference last week, was in relation to accessibility and inclusion. We ran a research piece which was around how accessible visitor attractions in Ireland are for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. That's only a tiny segment of the population that needs perhaps a special accommodation in order for them to enjoy it as much as everybody else and to make those special memories too. So we look forward to working with the tourism agencies and perhaps government support to enhance our capabilities and better understanding so that we can be more inclusive and have more visitors.
Catherine, finally, what is your outlook for the Irish tourism sector over the next 12 months?
Well, we're cautious, to be truthful, Karl. Our international markets, like the short-haul markets, France, Germany, Britain, they're experiencing a lot of the same cost of living pressures that domestic customers are here in terms of how much cash people have in their pockets and how many short breaks they're going to take over a year. So we're a little bit concerned about that. The US market was very good to us this year. It exceeded expectations. The dollar remains very strong. If there is geopolitical uncertainty in the Middle East, that does tend to impact on the US travellers' confidence. So we do hope for, peaceful resolutions all over the world, because the more peaceful it is, the less geopolitical instability there is, and the better that is for traveller confidence and for economies to thrive and for people to spend their money on leisure and recreation.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Catherine Flanagan, the CEO of the Association of Visitor Experiences and Attractions, and I'd like to wish Catherine and the organisation every continued success.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.